Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm gonna be testing a GeForce RTX 4060 in Star Wars Outlaws. This one is the MSI Ventus version of the card. We are running it with the latest Nvidia drivers, and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs right here in Tech Power-Up's GPU Z recessable bar is also enabled there. And over on the left, I'm pairing it with a Ryzen 9 7950X3D CPU, which is super overkill, of course, but you will get the same FPS with a Ryzen 5 7600, for example, and 32GB of DDR5 6000MHz RAM in dual channel. Let's get into it, shall we? Let's go over the settings first. I am starting at the 1080p resolution using DLSS set to native AA, so it's DLAA here. I'm also going to try some DLSS quality, of course, depending on the resolution and frame generation. And ray reconstruction, I will leave that disabled because it turns out it's a very intensive setting in this particular title for some reason. On the graphics settings, it says it's set to medium there, but I actually changed a bunch of things here, and we're actually utilizing the hardware unboxed optimized settings for the best performance to visuals ratio, and this is their optimized performance preset as well. Finally, these are the settings here on the basic settings. Third party is all turned off with RTX DI off. This is super demanding, and let's test out the game like this. Now, this is super unexpected, guys, because I thought we were getting very low FPS here, and although these FPS aren't perfect, they're certainly very playable, and especially compared to what we saw with the 4080 Super. I mean, that card was dropping into the 70s at 1080p max settings, yet this one, with a little bit of optimization, of course, and a lot of the settings are like on high and medium instead, which are way less intensive, and no ray reconstruction either, it's getting 50s on a 4060. So even though the game forces ray tracing use, which is terrible, and I really hate that, I wish we could disable that in all of the games. They say they are working on a toggle for that as well. Right now, this is the state of the game. You have to run it with it enabled, but apparently it isn't too bad if you optimize the settings once again, and the hardware unboxed settings over here do look quite decent, they're not too far off of what you'd get with maximum settings in the game. And by maximum, I mean ultra settings, because you can actually go above ultra settings with the console command, but don't do that. That's probably reserved for RTX 60 series GPUs. Anyway, around here, as you can see with the water effect, the reflections aren't really amazing, of course, because, well, we're not playing on maximum settings anymore, but even on maximum settings, they weren't really that amazing either. Oh my god. Where's my motorbike? There he is. Okay, we're fine. Ooh, this is a little place with a container. Okay, good stuff. Let's go back to the speedster. What? Yes. Oh boy! I'm dead. But yeah, guys, for a single-player title like this, it is not too terrible, is it? And especially, again, after seeing the 4080 Super struggling at 1080p max settings to get a high refresh rate experience, that is. It was always above 60. Yeah, I didn't expect this coming from 4060, but it seems like the game is scalable. So I'm gonna stop it right there. By the way, if you go into city areas, they seem to be way less intensive than just out here in the open with a lot of grass detail and so on. So you will get higher in 60 FPS if you are inside of a city area, which is great because that's mainly where the shooting will take place and where you're going to need more FPS, Although, apparently, you might need to shoot somebody else out here in the open as well, because they're shooting at us at the moment. Wait, let me just get out of here. Okay. Where are them bastards? Come over here. Stopped counting our FPS, by the way, but yeah. What is going on? What is going on? Why are you shooting at me? I could help you, Can I borrow your speedsters, by the way? Just borrowing, I'm not stealing anything, of course. We're not like that in this game. Actually, you are like that very much. Anyway, let's try it with some frame generation enabled. Also, another thing that I would like to see implemented in this game that isn't here yet is the sharpening filter with DLAA or DLSS, because you don't have an option to adjust that, and the game looks quite soft even with DLAA, native AA. Anyway, let's enable that frame generation on top of native AA, and it puts us up into the higher 90s apparently. Probably going to drop into the 80s sometimes, but I mean, it is a very good experience. Everything above like 75 or 80 frames per second in this particular title feels very good in terms of input lag. I don't really have an issue playing like this, even while shooting things in the city areas and so on. It's going to be stable, and there is not a huge amount of input lag like there is in some other titles with these lower frame rates. But of course, the fact that we're getting like 90s most of the time is pretty good, I would say. Like, oh boy, I need to heal myself. There are more of them there. I didn't notice that. Okay. Come on. Let's go. Kill the bastards. We're good. Oh boy, we still need to find Bob in this one, by the way. Yeah, it's an open world title. He's probably roaming around there somewhere, waiting for us to go there so he can try to kill us or just sell things to people, like in Cyberpunk. Oh boy. Okay, so that one has some healing on him, and I'm out of healing potions or whatever that is. Okay, this is bad. Oh boy. Oh, this guy. He's very strong. Okay. Oh, there's another one right there. I don't want to do this. Yeah, it's a terrible idea. I'm probably going to die. Guys, that was awful. This was my first attempt at clearing some enemies outside of the main missions, by the way. Okay, I'm just starting here. Oh, it's so much more beautiful. Oh, did you see that, by the way? What the heck was that? It was a T-pose. A T-pose in a $100 plus game, whatever it costs in dollars, I don't even know. What? No way. Alright, anyways guys, let's start counting the FPS once again and get out of here. Try to see other places. I'm gonna try to go to the city. Maybe on these lower settings the city could be a little bit more intensive. On maximum settings it is way less intensive than here, but yeah, we gotta check that out. Either way, if you want that 1080p experience with 60 plus FPS all of the time and that 90 FPS smoothness, this is the way to go, guys. I would recommend this experience. These settings especially, don't forget to optimize your game, because they will make such a huge difference. Honestly, I am very impressed with the scalability of the game. It's still not absolutely fantastic optimization, but at least you can make it playable. Oh my god, how am I alive? On an RTX 4060 with still pretty decent graphics, as you can see. Okay, so apparently with these settings inside of the city, it is still a little bit less intensive than out in the open. Alright, getting 90s, or kind of the same actually. We saw 90s as well, but these are upper 90s, lower 100s sometimes. And yeah, no problems. Good to see this, guys. Frame generation kind of saves the RTX 4060 a little bit here to make it above 60. There will be the odd little stutter here and there. Not sure if it's caused by the forced ray tracing always on, you know, because sometimes ray tracing does introduce a bit of stuttering in games, but, well, there's no way to tell if it's because of that in this one, because it's always on. 69 FPS, 1% low is absolutely amazing, by the way. Awesome to see that, you know. But yeah, it could also be because of the GPU running out of VRAM. Most other games will start stuttering like crazy and giving you a horrible experience when you run out of VRAM, but this one is not like those, fortunately. Alright, so at least they did optimize something. Okay, it could be way worse again, and if you play the game with the 4060 on ultra settings, it's going to be terrible, of course. But again, just adjust your settings, use hardware and box settings which look decent, and well, you can have this experience with the RTX 4060. Not bad. Now, if you don't like frame generation and you'd rather play with quality DLSS instead, let's check that out, see how it runs. I'm guessing it will run pretty similarly to what we've been seeing here with FG, but of course now we're rendering the game at 720p and upscaling it to 1080p, but at least we're getting these FPS natively, so there is no added input lag from DLSS frame generation right now, and well, that results in a quicker experience whenever you're shooting people and flicking your mouse around. The input lag is just not noticeable right now, okay? Also, since the native resolution was pretty blurry, I am also not seeing a big difference between DLAA and DLSS in this title, so at least you can have DLSS enabled and not suffer from a ton of blurriness and bad visuals and pixelation and so on. It actually looks okay compared to native resolution. Pretty similar once again, even at 1080p resolution, which isn't the norm, you know. Usually at 1080p you can tell that the DLSS is enabled on quality very, very well, but here, yeah, it's only because the game is already soft at native resolution that you can't tell, okay? It's not because of an amazing implementation of DLSS, but yeah, it does look decent. Very, very passable in my opinion still. Should we get in here? This is a terrible idea. I should definitely not do it. Why did you get out of the vehicle? Oh, you can't use your vehicle inside of here. You can't be inside of there either, so... kind of weird. Once again. Oh boy, oh boy, oh, I'm gonna die. You know what? I'm gonna die on purpose, guys, because I don't want to have the screen all gray because I'm lacking HP. And I just started counting our FPS once again. Just gonna roam around for a little bit longer here. A lot of people will likely play like this as well, so I'm gonna spend a little bit more time testing these settings with quality DLSS. But overall, it is going to be a really nice experience. Look at that, reflections are now even worse, by the way. They are already very flickery, even at 1080p native resolution, so obviously having DLSS on top of that will hurt the reflection quality here, unfortunately. Even with ray tracing enabled, and pretty much because of ray tracing being enabled is why you're getting such low reflection quality at this point with DLSS on. That's why they made the ray reconstruction feature in the first place. In Cyberpunk 2077, whenever you had DLSS quality plus ray tracing enabled, you, without the ray reconstruction that is, you had really low quality reflections because the ray traced reflections are already running a lower resolution than native, so putting DLSS on top of that will run on an even lower resolution than that. But ray reconstruction, at least in Cyberpunk 2077, made a huge difference to those reflection qualities without an FPS hit. In some cases, you would actually get a little bit higher FPS than without ray reconstruction enabled. In this one, though, I'm gonna try it just to showcase it, but yeah, it wrecks your FPS basically, and that's why the 4080 Super in my previous video was doing so poorly. If I had disabled this, we could get like 25% higher performance out of it. Now, you can see the reflections do look way better right now, but now with quality DLSS and ray reconstruction enabled, we're getting 50s sometimes and 60s. It's not too terrible, but we're losing about like 20 frames per second, which is a lot. On a higher end GPU, maybe ray reconstruction makes sense for those better reflections, but on this GPU, I don't think so. Okay, so I would disable it. Although, again, if you really want to enable it, with DLSS quality at the same time, it works, right? We're getting playable FPS for sure. Now, we could also enable frame generation on top of quality DLSS and ray reconstruction to have an even higher FPS experience. Alright, yeah, it bumps us up into the 100s with slightly softer visuals once again. The frame generation will make things a little bit softer. Okay, they're after us, guys. This is bad. Oh my gosh! Okay. Oh, boy. All right, maybe we can actually kill all of them right now. Come on. Fight me, you bastards. Get over here. Yeah, there we go. I got you pinned down. Or maybe they got me pinned down, actually. Yeah. Guys, with frame generation and DLSS quality at the same time, at 1080p resolution, I don't think it is a very good experience, because everything will become pretty blurry, especially with the ray reconstruction stuff at the same time. On moving things, those become blurry as well. Although, if you really care about the reflections quality, well, you can use ray reconstruction with high FPS. Now let's disable FG and ray reconstruction and set this back to native and set this to 1440p resolution. I'm curious to see how it works here. Here we have it, 2560 by 1440, native resolution, optimized settings by Hardware Unboxed, and it still seems to be a playable experience, right? I'm gonna start counting our FPS, and we're gonna drive around once again for a little while. Look at those reflections. Yeah, they're not as good as Reconstruction enabled, with all of the upscalers as well, the frame generation as well as DLSS quality at 1080p, even at native 1440, you know? But yeah, it's okay, If you don't look at the reflections too much, it's gonna be fine. In terms of visuals, it is looking pretty good right now, in my opinion, guys. Okay, because of 1440p. It's still way softer than some other titles are at native 1440 resolution, but it is what it is, my friends. If you want to use the DLAA, it's going to look like this. I just hope that they implement a sharpness slider. I feel like that's really needed in this particular title, because even at 1440 native resolution, it won't really look all that impressive in terms of sharpness, although it's way better than 1080p native res, of course. Now, yeah, it gets 30s, worst case scenario, I guess, at least here out in these fields, which is the place where I saw the FPS drop the most so far. Yeah, I'm fine. So yeah, you can expect like a 30 to 40 FPS experience most of the time. Inside of cities, it will be in the 40s, low 40s, mid 40s. It's not a terrible experience, once again, and I thought it would be worse at 1440p coming from a 4060. So the fact that it's playable is nice already. If you lock it to 30 FPS, for example, and play with the controller, it could be a console-like experience, for example. But let's set it to quality DLSS, which, well, will look pretty similar to the DLAA stuff in this particular title at 1440p. And now, instead of getting 30s, we're getting 50s. This is way closer to 60 than I was expecting, once again, so there's quite a big gain to be had in FPS when you enable DLSS, even at 1440p with the 4060. And that's great, guys. That means that you can get close to 60 FPS average experience, probably higher than that, depending on where you are in the map, of course. If you are in a city area, it's going to be above 60 FPS most of the time, with the drops into the 50s happening here and there. But yeah, and that also means that with an overclocked 4060, if you manually overclock it, or if you have like an ASUS ROG Strix version of it with higher overclocks out of the box, it will likely get like 2 or 3 higher FPS, and it will put it above 60 more often than what we're seeing right now. And I mean, the fact that the game also is running forced ray tracing means that it's actually not that terribly optimized as I thought it was after testing the 4080 Super. Again, all you need is to optimize the settings and play with some DLSS quality, and you'll have a decent experience even on a 4060 at 1440p. It's not real 1440p, but again, it looks very similar to the native AA stuff, so there's that. Not terrible, guys. It's way better than what I was expecting, once again. Now, enabling frame generation will probably put us up into the 100s. If it doesn't look terrible, I think it's going to be a great experience. Here we have it. Okay, so it doesn't quite bump us into the 100 FPS mark, but we're getting 70s, which is not terrible. And as I told you, 75 plus FPS or 80 plus FPS with frame generation still feels fine in this title, to me at least. Although I need, yeah, it's dropping into the 60s, so I need to get out to have a better feel of the input lag here. Yeah, whenever it drops into the mid 60s like that, it's going to be a little bit harder for you, for sure, to aim at bad guys and so on. Yeah, turns out you don't gain a ton of FPS by enabling FG. This is really weird, guys. It's also utilizing 80% of our 4060 right now. There was a game recently where I saw the same behavior. A little bit of stuttering here, which indicates that it might actually be swapping things into the RAM once again, but it shouldn't happen that often. But yeah, with FPS this low, I don't recommend it, okay, guys? I mean, it gets almost the same FPS as frame generation disabled, okay? So it was getting like 61. Look at that! Yeah, we lose like, what, 2 frames in this area? And it's mainly because the GPU doesn't max out with frame generation enabled. That's really weird. So yeah, if you are playing at 1440p with the RTX 4060, I recommend you to use DLSS quality, no frame generation, because it's not really working very well at this higher res. And I think, now that I remember it, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora exhibited the same behavior, but it was at 4K resolution. So I wonder if it's because it was running out of VRAM here with FG enabled at 1440p, and that was causing the GPU not to be able to max out or something. Or the bandwidth, could also be the bandwidth. I don't know what it is, but I do know it doesn't max out your GPU at this resolution, even with quality DLSS. And that is a bit of a shame, guys. I'm gonna try it once again. Maybe it didn't apply properly or something. 80 FPS in this area. That's the same thing as we saw previously. So in some areas, there are definitely improvements to be had. GPU usage is staying up into the 90s still. So it's not as bad as it was before. I guess it's just inconsistent, but it's not maxing out either. So right now, it was right here, right? We were getting 61 FPS looking in this direction. Now we're getting 79. That is so weird. Because of that inconsistency, I can't really recommend this experience once again. Although, if it was consistent, it would be a pretty cool experience, right? Like 70 plus frames per second all of the time with FG, DLSS quality, ray tracings, and stuff like that. Yeah, sounds good, doesn't it? And in terms of input lag, it's not terrible. Yeah, look at that. Now that I've been driving around for like, what, 15, 20 seconds, GPU usage is down into the 70 to 80% range, guys. Getting 60 FPS once again. So disabling frame generation would give us pretty much the same experience. Really weird stuff. It can't be a CPU bottleneck either, because it's a 7950X 3D, come on, right? So I guess that's about it for this video, guys. I think we covered every important resolution for the RTX 4060. A little bit of stuttering once again, don't like that. And yeah, the amount of input lag is a little bit annoying whenever the FPS touch the 60s once again. Now that I stopped the Speedster, we're back into the 100% GPU usage range, or like 95 to 100%, and 80 FPS. So weird, right? It's so inconsistent. I didn't really see this happening with the RTX 4080 Super though, so maybe it's down to the VRAM once again. But I guess we'll check out the 12GB GPU next in this game, so stay tuned in for that. And I'll catch you then. Love you all. Bye-bye.